Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell. You know what time it is. It is that time of the day when we talk about Thrive, those strategies that you need to turn uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. We are on a mission here. We have created a movement where you can really learn to turn disruption, your biggest obstacles, into your greatest opportunity. And boy, tighten your belts today because I got an incredible guest. You are not going to believe this story that our guest, Andre Norman, has going to lay out for us. If you read the trailers leading up to this, then you have seen we're going to talk about how one man could go from maximum security prison to Harvard University and what you can do to basically, if he can do that, we're going to learn the strategies he used so we can turn uncertainty into our greatest competitive advantage. I got to tell you, I was introduced to Andre Norman by Dr. Nito Quabain with High Point University, and we have become fast friends. I honestly, you're slowly becoming one of my favorite people. Just the energy that comes off of you and your passion for life and your ability to move forward and to let go of the past has really been incredible. So, Andre, welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure being here.
So let's go ahead and dive in. For those members of the audience that don't know Andre Norman, tell us who you are and what your story is.
Well, I was born in Boston, Massachusetts. My mom had a high school sweetheart. She had 2 kids. He goes to prison for robbing banks. He meets my dad, local drug dealer, 4 more kids. They went through the domestic violence fighting for like the first 6 years of my life. And they call it domestic violence now, but it's called handling your household in the 70s. You were allowed to beat your wife. Mm-hmm. And it was just hard to watch my mother get punched in the face or to watch the chaos that took place. But I didn't know other houses weren't like this. I got old enough to go to school. I dashed out of the house, went to school. And in the 70s, they did a thing called the busing crisis in Boston, where the white kids and black kids went to the same school and there was problems. I didn't go to a white school, but my bus went to a white neighborhood. So they used to throw rocks at us and call us names, all the classic black names you can call somebody be out of order. And then I went home to my dad. I said, Dad, who are these people? Because I never met white people before. I said,
wow.
I mean, not really. I mean, you go to school, you go home, you had white teachers, but that was it. I never hung out with white kids. I'm a little kid. It was school, home, and Nana's house. That's all I ever did. And so I'm like, who are these people? Why are they throwing rocks at me? And what do these names mean? And he couldn't explain it. He just walked off. And because my dad grew up in Virginia in the 50s, and it happened to him. So my grandfather moved north to get away from Jim Crow South, but they never dealt with the issue. So many people go through stuff and they move away from it, but they don't deal with it. So when it happened again, he was unprepared to deal with it. And he left me as a 9-year-old to process the busing crisis. And I don't process well at 9.
Right.
One day the rocks started, one day they stopped. One day the beatings from my mom's side, one day they stopped. He was gone. Single mom, 6 kids now. We move around and we find out Andre's illiterate in the 3rd grade. They put me in a thing called the dummy class for all the kids who couldn't read.
Yeah.
Luckily, a teacher pulled me out of the dummy class. She said, you're not a dummy, you just learn differently. And she took the time to teach me my learning style. By 6th grade, I found out I was poor because kids would make fun of me for having dirty clothes and not having the cool stuff. But I joined the band and I got a trumpet. And I played trumpet all through middle school. And when I got to 8th grade, ready to go to 9th grade, my teacher, Miss Ellis said, you need to go to a magnet school for musicians. And she made me go to a magnet school for musicians. She said, you have a gift and you need to go with your gift. So I go to the magnet school and I'm in the band with all the nerdy kids.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, I hang out with the cool guys. And finally, the cool guy said, man, why are you carrying that box, Trey? So it's my trumpet. They said, man, that ain't cool. Black kids shouldn't play the trumpet. It's a waste of time. They just hated on my trumpet. They said, either trumpet or us.
Wow.
9th grade, these are my buddies.
Yeah.
My trumpet. No purpose, no passion, no mission, no direction. I go astray. Countless people have given up on their passion because other people have convinced them who didn't have the passion. Misery loves company. So from there, I just go down the tubes and I woke up one day in prison. 7 to 10, 2 9 to 10s, 2 15 to 20s, 2 3 to 5s. They just sent me to prison for getting in a lot of trouble. When I get there, it was a reunion of all my friends from the dummy class, all my friends from the principal's office, from juvenile probation. We all just end up in prison. Prison is a place where not just criminals end up, but quitters end up. I would love to tell you that nobody loved me, nobody cared. Miss Oliver, Miss Lane, Mr. Bevilacqua, Miss Ellis, my music teacher, Mr. Duval, my ninth grade leadership teacher. I can tell you 20 teachers who try to save my life.
Right.
But I was so traumatized by not having a dad that I refused to let them help me because I thought their help meant my dad couldn't come back.
Yeah.
It's how I internalized it. And so I refused all help, even though it was available for me and I didn't need to go to prison. I just didn't know how to receive help because of my trauma. So now I'm in prison. I'm 18. I got a ton of time. I joined a gang. And for 6 years, I gang banged as hard as I could. I woke up in solitary confinement and I said, I'm the king of nowhere. I become the king of nowhere. I took over a space in a place that nobody cared about. It serves no purpose. And I can give you the 8 attempted murder charges. I've had riots on airplanes. I've been in riots on the yard. I mean, I've been in knife fights. I've been gang wars. I mean, been there, done that.
Yeah.
But I woke up in solitary confinement. I was down there for 2.5 years. I realized I'd become the king of nowhere. And I said, this is stupid. I want to do something different. I said, first, I want to be free. Never go with your first thought without my. Then I realized the white, the black, the Spanish, the Asian, the cool guys, the chess clubs, the church guys, everybody who got free came back because free is the parking lot. Once you hit the parking lot, you've technically achieved your goal.
Right.
What do next? I don't know. I just want to get free. Well, I'm free. What do? I don't know. I go back inside. So I said, I don't want to be free. I want to be successful. I said, successful people come from college. I'll go to college. I'll be successful. And I picked Harvard University. I picked it not because it's the biggest school in the world. I'm from Boston. It's the only school I knew the name of.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to go to Harvard. And everyone thought I was crazy. My friends were like, you can't go to Harvard. You're black. You're a gang member. You're crazy. And what I heard them saying was, give us your trumpet again.
Mm.
And when I had my dream the first time, my friends talked me out of it.
Right.
The time they tried to do it again, even though it was different people, it was the same thing. You can't do it. Doesn't make sense for you. So I let them go. I went back to my cell and I said, I want to do this. What is it going to take for me to do this? And I made a list. And I started working on my list. I got my GED. Then I started going to anger management classes. I went to therapy classes. I taught myself the law, overturned my case on appeal. And I came home after 8 years from the time I said I wanted to get out. I got out in 8 years instead of 25.
Wow.
I kept working. And I kept working and working and working. I worked with kids in the inner city. I worked with kids in the suburbs. I started helping people not go to jail. I didn't want to see anybody experience what I experienced. And then it took me about 25 years total, but I made it to Harvard. In 2016, Dr. Charles Ogletree said, Andre, we've been watching you, and we're going to give you a fellowship to the law school. And they brought me in, and they put me on their staff. I got my email, anorman@harvard.edu. It was the greatest day of my life.
I bet.
My friends called me and was like, hey, Dre, what you doing? I said, man, I'm at Harvard, and I ain't got to sneak in. They let me in. And I said, well, what do you want to do? They said, what do you mean? I said, remember I told you I was going to do this? And I did it. It took me a while, but I got here. What do you want to do? And I started helping my friends understand that they could overcome their adversity and their circumstances. There was a guy named Jules Gothard. He's a professor at London Business School, an executive education department. I met him by chance. He said, if he can do this with gang members, what can he do with businessmen? They came to London, to Baker Street, to the business school. They threw me in the room with Deutsche Bank. They said, go do what you do. They threw me in a room and standing ovation. They brought me back. It was British Petroleum. They threw me in a room, standing ovation. They brought me back. They threw me in a room, Lend-Lease Construction. Brought me back, Ericsson Mobile. They just kept throwing me in a room with all these different businesses. We'd go to Germany to do seminars. We go to Ghana. We go to Amsterdam. But they just kept throwing me in a room, and it kept working. And as much success as I had, and as much fun as it was, and as much people as I helped, I never got helped. See, my speaking career never got better because they took me raw and left me raw.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody taught me how to be a professional speaker or better. They just said, hey, you're good. It works. Let's go.
Let's go.
So there was no development for Andre. So when I went with you and Nito, I said, I can develop too.
Yeah.
So I've been going to YPO forever.
Yeah.
I am literally the highest rated speaker in YPO history. I've gotten more 10s than anybody, but I never developed beyond, I can be better than a 10.
Yeah. Let me ask you this though. So I think about your story, and you just gave that beautifully, but so quickly. And in that story, so first of all, you have this revelation that you're the king of nowhere and you start to change. But I can't imagine that the people around you wanted you to change. How hard and what were the strategies that you used? Because I think that's one of the biggest challenges I think that we have with success is fear of doing something different. And then it's reinforced because the people around us don't want us to do something different.
Well, the thing with I had to come up with the plan. I got
Mhm.
the plan first, and most of us get the plan. That's not the hard part. It's getting it past our friends and colleagues into the next level. And I
Right.
just had to change my environment as best as possible. So, being the boss of the gang, I sat at a certain table with a certain amount of guys around me. I had to move tables. I went to my number two. I gave him everything he needed. I said, "You're now number one. I'll be your advisor. I'm going over here." So I
Wow.
put him in position to be happy, to be the king of nowhere, because he thought it was a great thing. And I opted
Right.
out. So I passed on. I didn't try to take all the things with me. I left it with the next person and I moved off to the side. I did get challenged a few times as
Right.
far as, hey, man, what do you think you're doing? And I had to tell him, I stand on this. I was going to programs every day. And I was coming back one day and all the homies were outside. They say, "Hey, Drake, where you going?" I said, "I'm coming from programs." "Why you always going up there?" I said, "Man, I'm trying to get my life together." They said, "You're the smartest dude in the penitentiary. You are literally the smartest guy here. You don't need programming. You don't need help." I said, "Man, me and my dad got a bad relationship. Me and my mom are stressed out. I need to go." And one of the guys trying to make a name for himself was like, "Yo, man, what's really going on? Like I'm doing
Right.
something disrespectful, out of order." I said, "I see this." I said, "I tell you what, bro, I'm going to counseling tomorrow. I can talk about one or two things. I can go down to the unit right now. I can get my knife because I got one. I come back up here and I can stab you in the face. I can talk to my counselor about stabbing you in the face. Or I can just go like I was going to go and talk about me and my dad's relationship. You choose. What am I going to talk? I'm going one or two ways. You get to talk. You get to decide what I talk about." He says, "Man, Dre, that's messed up. You and your dad don't get along. You need to go fix that." Are you sure? Listen, I have no problem. I was willing to die for dumbness.
Yeah.
I got to be willing to die for greatness.
You were sentenced to 25 years and you managed to get yourself out in 8,
14.
14.
I did six crazy and did eight the right way.
Okay, 8 the right way. And eventually let out for early for good behavior and things like
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
Yes. And so you get out and you're quote unquote free. You've made it to the parking lot. Now what? What was your support system and things like on the outside?
My support system, my mom got evicted twice the first 6, 7 months I was home. My older sister had been on drugs since before I went to jail. I heard all the bad stories of the crack epidemic. My sister got caught in that. So I came home, went to my sister's house, and that was the most traumatic day of my life because I go in, my nieces and nephews I meet for the first time are living in a crack house. And it was just heart wrenching. And the crazy part, I had a counselor with me from the program I was in, and he had no clue. He wasn't from the city, he didn't get it. He said, "Oh, it's so great to see your sister." I'm like, "Man, they're in the room smoking crack. Dude, you don't." I wanted to say to him, "You can't see what this is," but he didn't understand.
Yeah.
I went home and I cried. I said, I said, so I used to go by and take food for my nephews and nieces and stuff like that. So I had no family.
Right.
I had some people I met in church, some church mentors, a guy named Pat Dempsey, who was like a volunteer at the prison. I would go hang out with him. He became my mentor. There was a guy named Father Martin, who was from the local church that used to come to the prison. They were, unlike when I was in high school, when I had teachers who cared, I now had mentors who cared. And I made it a point to spend as much time with those people as possible.
Yeah. So it really it became a matter of you consciously deciding who you were gonna surround yourself with, and you had to have people that fueled that.
And the thing is, when you're trying, people will see you trying and help. So
Yeah.
Pat Dempsey, Catholic guy, and he takes me out to BC one day. He introduced me to a guy named Father Woods. And Father Woods sitting in his office, he says, "What kind of classes do you like?" I told him 4 classes. We picked them out. He handed me a schedule. He said, "You start school on Monday." I'm like, "Huh?" He said, "You're enrolled in BC." I'm in Boston College, like one meeting.
Wow.
I go to Boston College. I'm going every week. It's great. Second or third semester, something happened when I had to go to the office. I go to the office and I ask the lady for something. She goes to pull my file. There's literally a sticky note that says, "Dear Father Wood, there's this guy who just got out of prison. He's phenomenal. He's exciting. He needs a chance. I think you should meet him. There, by Pat, my mentor. That was my application
Wow.
into Boston College, a $50,000 a year school, was a note from a friend to a friend.
Wow.
I didn't even realize I never filled out applications. I'd never been to college before. I got
So
into class on a note.
when you got out of prison, did you already have a purpose? Did you know what you were going to do? Had you spent that last 8 years defining what difference you were gonna make when you got out?
The last 8 years, because I'm living positive. I have a great mindset, but I'm removed from society.
Yeah.
Live the life that I'm dreaming and working towards. So I can't physically see it or pull from my data bank to say, hey, I've been down this road before. So I just kept it as I want to be successful. I'm going to stay away from negativity and I'm going to stay focused and I'm just going to go forward. I don't know what forward looks like, but I know what backward looks like.
Right.
And I try to surround myself with mentors and people. And most of my mentors at the time were white. I had like 3 black mentors and like 5, 6 white mentors. I said, I don't care what color you are anymore. I
Yeah.
was raised in Boston in a charged racial society, and you picked a side. My new picking side was, were you a good person? Did you have
Mhm.
character? Did you have integrity? Were you helpful? Have you established? Is something in your life I want to emulate? I don't. I didn't matter where you came from, what you look like to me anymore, because I want success, and success doesn't have a color, doesn't have a gender, doesn't have an age. It has a clear, distinct look, and I know what I was looking for. So I didn't have stuck on past. I want to go forward. So I just surrounded myself and kept going.
I believe in everything you say. It says success is it doesn't have a color, it doesn't have a gender, it doesn't have an age, it doesn't have a background, it doesn't have an education. It has a desire, is basically, if you desire and you focus forward, like you said, you will find a way. But our society seems to be drowning in, I feel like the worst thing that can happen to you is to be allowed to blame your circumstance for where you are. Now, I will clarify that by saying some people's circumstances are far more unfortunate than others. We all don't get to start in the same
Right.
place.
It's never where
Um,
you start, it's always
it's
where you end. And I, for years, sat in prison blaming my parents, blaming society, blaming the government, blaming everybody. I never took accountability. Those
right.
things I was saying were true. I didn't have the best parents.
Yes.
I didn't go to the best schools. I didn't have the best supports. I didn't have the best breaks. All true. But those weren't the reasons I wasn't successful. The
Right.
reason I wasn't successful is because I wasn't taking accountability and applying myself. As I sit here today, a Harvard fellow, I worked in the White House, London Business School. I've been over 30 countries. I'm hanging out with the top speakers in the world, self included. But I'm the same guy. How did
Yeah.
this guy get here? Because I took accountability. I received help and mentorship from the people who could help me, not the people I wanted to help me, but the people who could help me. And I just kept moving forward. I let go of the negativity. I still grew up in the hood. I still went to a bad school. I still spent 2.5 years in solitary. I just take accountability for the things I have and don't have. And it's
Yeah.
predicated on my work ethic and my willingness to say I need help.
What I love about what you're saying is that you were sitting there in prison blaming everybody. And even though it was valid, you know, um, the point was you were still in prison. And when you stopped blaming everybody and took accountability, you got out of prison. That blame, I feel like, is a trap. It's just a big trap.
Oh, definitely. You can't look backwards and go forwards.
No.
So all the people who I were blaming were behind me. So my
Mhm.
parents were behind me. My school was behind me. I'm further. I'm looking backwards and I'm complaining, which is stopping me from going forward. So
Right.
all the people who are sitting in the office saying, "I know I got greatness in me. I know I can do more, but my boss won't give me a raise."
Yeah.
My greatest breaks came when I got fired.
Yeah. Right.
I used to work for somebody, and I loved the job. I'd have never left.
Yeah.
I didn't get my chance to ascend into where I am now until I got fired. The
Mhm.
guy got jealous of me because I was whatever it was. He fires me, which forces me to start my own company. And I said, I'd have never started my own company. I'd be working for him, complaining about not getting the next level up or next promotion.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. When you look at, certainly you rank at the top of people who has have been able to take adversity and turn it into unbelievable opportunity. For those listening to this podcast who are looking at something like a boss who won't give them a raise, like stuck in a bad relationship, upside down, 500,000 in debt, or these types of things. What are, like, in your mind, when you look at your life and you look at the journey that you've taken, what are the steps and what are the strategies to start to turn things around?
The first step is get out of your own head. There's a saying that I saw from before. You can't read the label of your life if you're inside the job. So the Mike Tyson story. Mike Tyson's from the inner city. He goes to juvenile detention for snatching pocketbooks. He fought every day in jail. And one day they kept sending him to the hold. And finally somebody said, send him to the gym. He goes to the gym and the gym teacher says, hey, you're a good boxer. And he calls Cus D'Amato, who's a boxing trainer. Cus comes down, he looks at him. He says, Mike, I'm going to make you the heavyweight champion of the world. Matter of fact, the youngest heavyweight champion in the world. Mike Tyson's life has nothing to do with the heavyweight championship. Has nothing to do with Muhammad Ali, Floyd Patterson. He can't conceive what is being said to him. Then Cus saw that he was stuck where he was stuck. He says, if you can just trust me, if you can see what I see in you, you would do what you'd be saying the same thing. But you can't see the greatness, the championships, the world travel. You can't see it because you're stuck in the picture frame. And so
Mm,
many people try to see the picture while they're in the frame, and it doesn't work. So Cus had to say to Mike, trust me, and I will show you greatness. And he trusted, he decided to trust Cus, and we got the youngest heavyweight champion. And he
right.
soared to the top. And when Cus died, now all the vultures came and pulled him back down. Now he's managed to
Mm,
break free and come up again. But so many people rely on their own selves. Sometimes you need accountability. You need a mentor. I don't care how
yeah.
old. I'm 57. I have 10, 12, 13 mentors. And I'm not too old to learn or to listen. So step one, get somebody who's vested in you, not your greatness, not your success, not your money, in you. Pat Dempsey loves me. Father
Mhm.
Martin loves me. Deacon John loved me. My friend John Ruin, who just passed, loved me. You're saying Keith Alper loves me. I can go down a list of people who could care less about anything other than me. And I
Right.
listen to them because I can know, trust, and love them. So if you're
Mhm.
sitting saying, how do I get started over? I call Meredith and say, Meredith, help me do an accountability assessment of my life.
Right.
Give me an honest critique of my life and where I am. And the first question we're going to say is, where do you want to be? First question, where do you want to be? Well, I want to be the CEO of my own company. I want to be the number one speaker in the world. Cool. We know where you want to be. Now let's take an assessment of where you are and the things you're doing to make that happen.
Yeah, having that really, really clear vision and focusing on that vision, but taking the actions every single day.
First step, where do you want to be? Give me your big picture or the here we go, whatever they call it. Here the BHAG. Give me the BHAG. I want to do cool. Now, where are you right now? And does your life line up with that goal? And if it doesn't, let's get it lined up.
How did you keep from being pulled backwards, though? And
One,
and the other question I wanna ask you is, do you feel like the revelation that you had when you were the king of nowhere, do you feel like that message had been out there before, but you just didn't see it?
I didn't see it. There's always good and bad. There's always
Yeah,
a little angel on this side, a little devil on this side. They've been there all day. It's who you decide to listen to. You listen to your lower self that says, I can't lose weight. I listen to my lower self. I'm stuck with this person forever. Listen to my lower self. I can never run my own company. That voice is in there. It's because it has to be a balance. For yin, it has to be a yang. Or you're going to listen to the voice saying, I have this vision. Oh, I have this desire. I have this skill set. You determine which side of the brain you're going to listen to. The side that says go forward, or worse off, the one that says sit still. It never says go back. It just says sit still.
sit still. So tell us about the work you do now.
The work I do now is vast. Going to prisons. I'm going to prison twice this month. I'm going to spend 3 days in Texas visiting 6 prisons. I'm going to spend 2 days in Tennessee visiting 1 prison. And I go inside and I tell the men and the women, not only tell them you can be great, this is what success looks like. I sat in this cell, I sat down here and I did these. This is what success looks like. So often we have these dreams and visions of grandeur, but we never see success. Imagine being a musician and getting to sit in a room with Eric Clapton. You
Yeah.
want a musician, you get to sit in the room with Prince. You can see success versus dream about it. So when I go back, they get to touch hands with success from where they come from and
Mhm.
follow through. So there's that. I definitely go to prisons across the world. I was in Kenya a few months ago. I was in Ethiopia 2 months ago. I go around the world, including ours, and I help people in prisons. I train staff because I don't want the staff to get hurt. I don't
Yeah.
want inmates to be hurt. So I train staff and I train inmates and show them what success and help out stuff. I help people with crisis. So I have a friend, Joe Polish, with a company called Genius
Yeah.
Network.
Yeah.
Joe, little brother to me. He has 400 entrepreneurs in his group. My job is if any member of Genius Network has a crisis, somebody suicidal, somebody depressed, somebody's on drugs, somebody needs treatment, my
They
job is
call
to
you.
go to them and help them get on track. So I do the crisis management for the membership because Joe says, I don't want you to just be a great entrepreneur and your family falls apart. We want both those things to be straight.
How did you go from being in prison, though, to making these connections?
In prison, I connected people. What I did in prison as a king of nowhere was I had
Mhm.
to deal with the Italians, I had to deal with the Irish, I had to deal with the Asians, I
Yeah.
had to deal with the Latinos, I had to deal with the guards. I was a mediator. That was my job. I was the king of nowhere. I was the president of a prison. So I dealt with all the different factions every single day. So
Right.
when I come home, the skill set that I had in prison translates out here. Having to negotiate, network, reading people is my number one skill.
Okay.
Somebody comes up to me in prison, I got 3 seconds to figure out he's trying to rob, rape, or kill me. I got 3 seconds. And if I don't figure it out, I end up robbed, raped, or dead.
Right.
So
Right.
I was really good at figuring it out. It's called get it right or die. So I'm really good at reading people's judgments, their intention, their breaking points. If they're lying, what they're trying to snake by me, I'm really good at it. It's second nature. I teach CEOs how to read people.
Mm.
Because most of these guys grew up in a nice suburb or they grew up someplace in a public school and they went to college and they got a job. They didn't have to read people to stay alive.
Right.
If I didn't read people, I wouldn't be on this call.
Right.
So I teach CEOs and middle managers how to read people and then how to influence them to do and be better. Because my entire staff in prison were high school dropouts, drug addicts, psychopaths. I had to train them on how to do the things I need them to do to keep me alive. Because if one of
Right.
them mess up, there's a glitch in the armor and I suffer. So I had to
Right.
train the least educated people on the planet and the most dysfunctional people on the planet how to be high functioning. And I did that for 14 years. So when I come home, you give me a guy with an MBA, it's just not even fair.
Yeah.
I guy,
This is so much easier.
yeah, this guy got 100 years. His mother used to lock him in the closet. His father ran out on him. His sister's been on drugs forever. And I got him motivated and functioning at a high rate. You give me some. That's what the guy Jules Goffin said. If he can do this with gang members,
Right.
what can he do in a corporate setting?
Right.
And I cut through the bullshit. We get straight to it, and we help people move forward. We don't intimidate. We inspire and educate.
How did you get past your own imposter syndrome? Which there had to have been a level of insecurity or I'm not good enough, or what was the path to get through that?
You don't get through it. It's still with me. When I stood in the room with you the other night at dinner at
Yeah.
in Denver, I'm sitting in a room with 40 of the top speakers in the world. You got 20, 30, 40 years in the room. I got a first timers badge on.
Right.
That's intimidating. And he said, and Nito said, Dre, speak. You got Willie Jolly in the front row.
Right.
Listen, you have the greatest speakers in the world in the room, and Nito says, speak. You got 4 minutes to give this message. No prep time, no research, no notes. You got 4 minutes to hit this mark. My biggest fear, will I be accepted? Not can I
Mhm.
do it? I can do it. My biggest fear is, will I be accepted?
Mhm.
So fear is a feeling, an emotion that you feel right before you give up or overcome. And
Mhm.
I used to have that. I've always had the feeling. Sometimes I just give up and walk away. I It's going to come. It still comes. It came to me in Denver. The fear of will I be accepted? Will I do a great job? Will this go well? Came. And I
Right.
said, well, win, lose, or draw, I got to go forward. I will
Right.
fail forward. I had to learn the lesson, fail forward. They didn't teach us that as kids. It was like, don't fail. Learning to fail forward was a great lesson for me.
I do think that too. I mean, I think that, I've got a brother he's passed now, but he's definitely a perfectionist. I do not suffer from that in the family, and it's always been not great. I mean, I don't love it, but falling on my face is just something that I do, and I'm okay with it. But I think at times when you're dealing with imposter syndrome, it can be hard to get by that because you've got to do the inner work to get to truly get past. How do we begin to turn around though the challenges that we're dealing with when it comes to a business community, it comes to society? I feel like we're so easily offended these days. We're so focused on the small stuff and forgetting about that we don't focus on the big things that really matter. It's just like you said, like facing on the lessons and things that you had been taught and blamed would have kept you exactly where you were. But making that shift just radically changed your life. And I know for me, my story isn't as extreme as yours, but by the time I was 36 years old, 6 male members of my family, including my dad, both my brothers, my first husband, had all died of alcohol addiction. And I didn't know why every man in my life died and why everything had been so abusive and so cruel and definitely left me with big spikes of insecurity. And I remember bawling my eyes out one day and saying, "When is my white knight going to show up?" And all of a sudden it hit me that there was not going to be a white knight. And if I was not going to be on this floor this time next year, the only person who could get me off the floor was me.
Right.
And I was I can picture that like it was yesterday, as I'm sure you can picture the day that you had your revelation. And it sure wasn't easy, but in everything changed, I realized that this sucked. It wasn't fair. I didn't know why I had to go through what I went to go through, but it was a waste of time and my energy to blame it anymore. And I had to find a way out. And the only person who could make that happen, people would help me. But if I couldn't get to the point where I could ask for the help and wasting my energy on what wasn't fair took the precious energy I needed to turn things around.
I'm gonna give you a prison lesson.
Yeah.
I got to prison, and I'm in a gang, and this is the rule. They tell you the rule. Dre, you got beef with somebody. I'm like, all right, cool. They say, okay, this is the rule. I don't care who it is. If it's your beef, you throw the first punch. We got the next 9. But if you don't throw the first punch, we can't help you. You have to throw the first punch. You have to throw your first punch, not the first punch. You have to punch at least once before we can jump in. Because if
I,
not, then that's the rule.
I love that.
Throw the first punch, and then we got the next 9. So you can have all the support in the world, but if you don't participate, you're not bought in, no skin in the game, then it's not gonna. It's not. You're not gonna level up.
Yeah, I have a feeling that we have just scratched the surface of the amount of lessons that you can learn from prison. When people give me excuses as to why they can't work out and they can't be in good shape, I always talk about those guys in the maximum security prison that live in those tiny little cells. And and they are the most buff human beings you have ever seen in your
No
life,
distraction.
right?
No
Yeah.
distraction.
No, but with whatever they've got, it's not like they have a workroom. It's not like they have a coach that shows up every day. They just make it happen.
Yeah.
And so it's what is hard to believe. But we have come to the end of this podcast. I always like to leave with 2 questions, but 3 for you. Number 1, I want to keep having you back because there's so many more questions that I've got. 2, I always like people to know how they can find out about you. And the third is for our listeners, what is your best piece of advice for people dealing with disruption, people with dealing with uncertainty, people not moving forward? From Andre's perspective, what can they do to really begin to turn uncertainty to their greatest competitive advantage? And you would start with any one of those.
Number 1, I will come back. You invited me the first time.
Yeah.
They need to invite me the second time.
All right. You got it.
Me and you can go to lunch and
All
we
right.
can hang out. We can do FaceTime. If your listeners want me to come back, they need to write you and say, Meridith, we want Andre back. And
Awesome.
we'll come back. If they don't want me back, I won't be offended. I'll be hurt, but I'll get over it and keep moving. So your listeners need to send you a text, an email, whatever the process is, saying, we want Andre back.
You got it. We'll look for that.
Number 2, piece of advice they can do to get over the uncertainty: stop trying to do it by yourself. Stop. If you're thinking it in your own head and it's too easy to get lost, you always have to write stuff down, but you need an accountability partner. So I'm going to say, since they're on this live and they're listening to you, they need to reach out to you. If they're getting great business advice or training advice on speaking, if you have somebody you know, trust, and love who's stable, stretch her. Don't let her just stretch you. Say, Meredith, we need you to give us this. They might want you to create a whole nother lane for them because they need that. Why send them someplace else when they already know, trust, and love you? So they need to write you and say, we need this other lane, whether it's accountability, whatever it is. Stop trying to run off and find somebody when you got somebody.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
What was the third question? I missed it.
Just how they get in touch with you.
Right here. I'm going to be right here. I'm going to be right here. We're going to do prison boss training live. If you want to be a prison boss and rule the world, we got you right here. But
I love it.
AndreNorman.com. If you put my name in LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, everything's just my name, Andre Norman. But I will tell you, if you want to talk to me, you just need to write Meredith and say, hey, we can do a third guest. We can have people come on and ask their questions live.
I love that. Let's look at doing that next time.
Yeah, we can have people come on. And if you like this conversation and you want to learn whether it's how to help your loved one who's struggling, how to level up yourself, I'm saying how to help the community, how do I help the community be better? Whatever the thing is, come on here and talk to me. Come in and talk to us and let us help you in real time.
I'm taking that challenge. We're definitely going to do that. But I want to thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an amazing conversation. You are just a wonderful energy out into the world. And I'm so excited to have you in my network, in my community, and to count you as a friend.
I got one thing for you.
Yeah.
For all the people you said in your life that passed, don't look at them straight on. If you can understand the environment that they came from, you would better understand the people that they became.
Yeah.
It's real easy to look at somebody and be like, well, why are they like this now? Go back and look at the environment that they came from and the stimulants that fed into that environment. That'll give you a clear picture of who and why they became. So my father was my stepdad was a bank robber. My father was a drug dealer. I lived in the hood. I couldn't read. I grew up with somebody who robbed drug dealers. I can't.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But people say he robbed drug dealers. No.
Yeah.
My stepdad robbed banks. My dad sold drugs. I grew up with somebody who robbed drug dealers. If you understood that part of my life, you would understand how I got to that conclusion.
Yes.
So I need you to go back and research their environment that they came from. And then you will better understand where they ended up. If you look at the ending, it's not clear.
Yeah. And I think what's so interesting is that the one thing that I have done is knowing that, like, it would make very big sense that I come from an alcoholic background, that I would marry an alcoholic, right? Because until you do the work, and until you do the work, you can't break the pattern.
Correct.
Yeah. I think we have so much more to talk about. We will definitely, I want to do a Q&A session, so I'm going to work on that. But again, thank you. Thank you, Andre. Thank you, listeners. And we'll see you right back here next week for another episode of Thrive and the strategies that you need. Remember, we are on a movement here. We want people to believe that disruption and uncertainty, just beyond it lies your greatest opportunity. And together, we're going to learn what it takes to turn uncertainty consistently to your greatest competitive advantage. We'll see you next week.